Hassan, over here in Chicago, ICE is literally going door to door. A lot have no criminal background. The only good thing is community here have been teaching them not to open the door without a warrant. Yeah, they're very mad about that. They've been getting really, really upset about that. The fact that like people have taught undocumented immigrants their rights. Yeah, nothing scarier than an informed public that forces these Gestapo members to at least abide by the existing laws for the time being as those laws continue to exist. Here's another story that I wanted to cover as well. Man falsely poses as immigration agent and traps Latino men in their car.
You got caught, Mo. Where you from? Mexico? You from Mexico? You're going back.
A South Carolina man has been charged with kidnapping and impersonating a police officer after officials say he detained a group.
Of course he's been arrested. You can't impersonate a federal law enforcement officer. Chatters, are you kidding me? I'm sure they'll deputize people soon. There's like a bounty system some of these states want to implement. But even in that structure, you cannot portray yourself as a court-ordered federal law enforcement officer.
Group of Latino men in Charleston County, South Carolina. 33-year-old Sean Michael Johnson is accused of willfully and unlawfully presenting himself as an ICE agent and detaining a vehicle of individuals from moving, according to court records.
Parky. No, you cannot drive, bro. You have not a license. You have no license. We're going back.
In addition to taking their keys, Johnson also blocked the men's car with his van, so they could not drive away, according to court documents.
You know, if you don't have a license, you cannot drive a car in the United States. No, it's over. It's over. Hey, don't be speaking that pig Latin in my country, bro. Be speaking that.
I mean, this is literally a hate crime too, on top of everything else. Like, what are we doing here? I can't say what I think for I want to evade a ban, but goddamn. And neither can you, chat. People tell me I'm crazy for saying re-education camps. What do you do with this guy? Re-education camp for this guy is an infinitely better solution than what most people would advocate for, you know?
That pig Latin here.
Johnson was charged with 3 counts of kidnapping and 1 count each of impersonating a law enforcement officer, petty larceny, assault, and battery, according to jail records. The men in the vehicle are not facing charges, according to local police.
Have fun.
Johnson posted a bond of over $230,000 and was released from jail, according to online court records. In a court appearance, his family pleaded with the judge.
Who fronted him the 23 grand? Oh my God, does he come from a rich family too?
Saying that their son has mental health issues and has tried to get help in the past, but he needs to continue with that therapy, according to CNN affiliate WCIV. CNN has been unable to locate an attorney for Johnson.
You usually pay 10%. You front the 10% to a bail bondsman and he covers the rest. And then if you actually don't attend your court date or whatever, then that's when bounty hunters come in. An insane process, but the bond is 10% of that. New data shows that the majority of the 8,200 people arrested by ICE have no criminal conviction of any kind. Oh, what? That's crazy. Dude, I'm so shocked. Thank God for ProPublica, by the way. This is what I've been saying from day one, okay? Remember, I was like, where are the journalists? Why are they not logging through all of this data to figure out if these guys actually have any sort of criminal convictions whatsoever? I hope that there are good journalists out there who are digging deep, because the first couple of weeks of ICE activity was immediately met with onboarded Fox News commentators that were doing ride-alongs during these deportation processes and claiming that these were some of the biggest, some of the most prolific rape of all time. One of the guys that they detained at an immigration court hearing was a DACA recipient who is a middle school teacher in Florida. This happened yesterday. Yeah, I told you, the notion that they're like going after criminals aggressively is ridiculous. And by the way, 50% of them have no criminal convictions whatsoever. And I'm willing to bet that the remainder, okay, the overwhelming majority of those who have any sort of criminal acts in their past are probably for minor things, like the guy we saw in Guatemala, who literally was in the country for 15 years, and they got him on trespass. Like, he was deported for trespassing.
So how many years altogether did you live in the U.S.?
Almost 19 years.
19 years, yes. I have a wife, kids.
And I'm scared because now with Trump, they say they have to, go with a criminal, but we're not a criminal. But
But you have a trespassing conviction?
yes, but to me, it's not like that. But
To you, it's not as serious a crime.
yes, I'm not.
Yeah. Also, in terms of the criminal prosecutions that are coming down for reporting on ICE activity, the FCC is now investigating San Francisco radio station that shared the location of undercover ICE agents. Wonderful stuff. The Federal Communications Commission has launched an investigation into KCBS radio after the San Francisco station broadcast information on live locations of undercover U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents in San Jose. FC Chairman Brendan Carr told Fox News the commission had sent a formal letter of inquiry to the station in response to its January 26th discussion of ICE operations, which he called really concerning. He said that the station had a matter of days left to explain how this could possibly be consistent with their public interest obligations under the FCC license. You had ICE agents undercover doing operations in East San Jose and part of the town known for violent gang activity. And you had this radio station broadcasting a live location, identifying the unmarked vehicles that they were in. We're talking about a group of Gestapo soldiers actively coming after the so-called free press in the United States of America, where the First Amendment is supposed to protect this sort of thing, and going to another federal regulatory agency to basically take away their broadcasting license because they don't like what they're broadcasting. On January 26th, the host of KCBS Radio Weekend News shared the location of agents and the vehicles they were in based on the information from the Rapid Response Network in Santa Clara County, a community organization developed to protect immigrant families from deportation threats. The county's response network says that agents in San Jose were in unmarked vehicles, the host said, describing the color, make, and model of the vehicles before listing the streets and locations they were spotted, which is awesome that they were doing that, by the way. Respect. The Communications Act of 1934 requires that broadcast licenses operate in the public interest, convenience, and necessity. The FCC reserves the right to fine a station or revoke his license if it's found in violation of the public interest standard. How is that not in the public interest? It is directly in the public interest. You'd think more than 48 hours after the start of ICE raids in Denver, Aurora, we'd know just how many people were detained and then taken into custody. We don't. And that's now the story. Let's talk about it. 2 days ago, the feds said it was trying to arrest 100 Tren de Aragua members. I believe the number of Tren de Aragua members that were arrested is 1. Yesterday, we asked ICE how many were detained. Seems like a simple request. Fox News, after all, had reported 30. Keep in mind, Fox has a reason to know. They had a team embedded with ICE on Wednesday. Problem is, 30 was nowhere near 100. But what's even more telling is that as of now, ICE has confirmed that just 1 Tren de Aragua member was detained on Wednesday. 1 is quite a bit less than the 100 that they wanted. We also don't know how they concluded that there were 100 plus Tren de Aragua targets to begin with. It is clear that the Trump administration is trying to spin this as a story about a leak. I addressed this yesterday. So yeah, I'm going to talk about this right now. The Aurora, Colorado situation. If you recall, the story became one of national prominence when virtually everyone on right media were, without any evidence whatsoever, relying on a slumlord claiming that a Venezuelan gang had overtaken his apartments. Now, of course, this CBZ management, they try to do this thing where they try to make a big show of this falsehood initially. Initially, it was built around a slumlord who managed a bunch of slum properties, low-income housing, that were in a dire state, so much so that the local government there had sued the slums and actually declared it unsafe to live inside of these slums because of how awful the situation was. This management company had gotten thousands of complaints across numerous properties that they manage. Not simply the one in Aurora, Colorado. But it did not matter. They still kept going with this narrative that despite the fact that another one of the properties was actually investigated and found to be uninhabitable years before Venezuelans actually even came to Aurora, Colorado. And the second court case that came down for this famous property came down before Venezuelans actually, quote unquote, took over this Aurora, Colorado slum, but everybody went along with it. Now, the difference here, unlike in the past, is that Fox News is doing this propaganda under its objective reporting wing. Initially, Fox News used to do this on the editorial side. But now they're doing onboarding, and they're supposed to have an objective news reporting side, and their objective news reporting side is also doing egregious propaganda. It's ridiculous. So I'm glad that ProPublica has been tasked with at least figuring out what the truth is. Here, look at this.
Homeland Security Investigation's Denver office framed raids across the metro area in simple terms.
These actions were targeted operation focused on violent criminal aliens.
Why does everybody at the Department of Homeland Security sound exactly like Tom Homan? They're so ogre coded.
TDA members and those who are a threat to our public safety.
What he would not say was how many people they arrested, how many were wanted for serious crimes, how many were members of that Venezuelan gang. We know more about a raid 11 days ago in Adams County, where federal agents said they were looking for dangerous criminals with guns and drugs and handed out video of the arrests.
I think the people in the city of Denver woke up today to a safer city.
The Drug Enforcement Administration's top Denver agent hit the airwaves.
These are dangerous criminals. You've seen from those videos that came out of Aurora a few months ago. These guys are carrying pistols and AK-47. These are serious bad guys.
Now, 9 News Investigates has confirmed that no criminal charges have been filed against anyone in that case. None by the U.S. Attorney.
Dangerous criminals with AK-47s. And all they did basically was go door to door, harass and try to detain random people that they suspect of committing the crime of being brown while living on U.S. soil.
None by the Adams County District Attorney.
It should surprise everyone that we're using government resources like the DEA to go and round up people who have no criminal legal case against them.
Laura Lunn is an attorney with the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, and she says there's a very big difference between facing a criminal charge and being held for an immigration violation.
Immigration detention is civil detention.
Civil detention, where people seemingly disappear. Without a name, there's no way to find out who's being held or what they're accused of.
I think it's very intentional that people in immigration proceedings are detained so that folks don't have access to them to gain information about what their experience is.
There were raids yesterday in my apartment complex. I live in Aurora, Colorado. Also, I will be picketing in solidarity at my local King Super this week for the Kroger union strike. Yeah, they're going door to door. They're doing door to door operations and basically trying to snag as many people as they possibly can. This is all of the cover.
And the results announced today by Fox News Channel. ICE agents said they were going after 100 members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua in Denver and Aurora yesterday. Now, while the feds refused to tell journalists just how many arrests they made and how many of them were TDA members, the Fox News reporter embedded with agents said they only made 30 arrests, and just one was a TDA member. Fox News and the Trump administration are now blaming local media outlets for the lack of success.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. This is the other angle of this that I wanted to cover. They're claiming that the reason why they can't actually apprehend these like crazy criminals is not because they're not really interested in apprehending these, really violent, crazy criminals or whatever, and simply trying to do a racist dragnet, despite the fact that they're claiming that they're going after these like super violent criminals. It's because the media is reporting on it and it's leaking it. It's leaking it ahead of time and then, everybody gets to run away.
It certainly felt like everybody knew this was coming, including the targets and the local media.
There were some leaks from local media that tipped off the local activists on the ground, and it made your jobs difficult.
We've already identified how this operation got leaked. I'll deal with that today.
Immigrant communities in Denver and Aurora have been expecting yesterday's raids ever since Donald Trump campaigned on a promise that he would start his mass deportation here. Many of the properties involved in the raids were also no-brainers. They're linked to CBZ Management, the landlords that made national headlines by claiming takeovers by the Venezuelan gang. And as those raids played out publicly for hours yesterday, community members and activists gathered to heckle agents from afar, shouting legal advice to the people inside apartments as agents went door to door asking people for their papers.
Interesting. I can't seem to put my finger on what this reminds me of, Straight Nazi shit. That's what.
Today, Trump's border czar Tom Homan threatened federal prosecutions for people he says are...
What happens if you don't open the door? Nothing. And you shouldn't. It is illegal for them to break in unless they have a search warrant. The fact that they're just like trying to go to every single person door to door with the hopes that they can nab someone who is not aware of their rights, their constitutionally protected rights, is ridiculous. They need a search warrant signed by a judge to be able to go into your home.
Now, the feds say they were targeting violent criminals. We continue to ask just how many of the people arrested in Colorado yesterday were violent criminals, as opposed to people who had civil immigration violations and were picked up because they couldn't show papers.
Why are you adding Zach Rohr in my chat? Zach Rohr, why are you saying that like it's not literally what MAGA believes? I think you're in the wrong chat, chatter.
Suggested today that the lack of success in this week's raids means more non-criminals will be arrested in the future.
We go on these operations, the operation got leaked somehow, it makes us less successful. Again, when you leak an operation, it means more bad guys are not being arrested, which means more bad guys are walking the streets. So as we address that, you're going to see the arrests increase. As the aperture opens up beyond criminals, you're going to see more arrests.
So let's look more closely now at the Trump administration's claim that this week's ICE raids failed because the local media in Colorado leaked the operation. You may recall that multiple national media outlets reported that these raids were supposed to happen last Thursday. That operation was apparently pushed back after it became widely known ahead of the fact. Our Evan Krugel's along now to explain that when these raids did happen, Evan, federal agents had Fox News along for the ride, and this was a pretty conspicuous parade around town.
It was, Kyle. It's worth noting ICE did very little to hide or disguise those operations yesterday. We got multiple calls from community members who saw them staging in a large parking lot in southeast Denver. So we showed up and decided to follow at a distance as they made their way up I-25 to Thornton.
This local reporting is fantastic, by the way, and I'm so glad that there are still people out there doing real journalism. Holy shit.
To be clear, we as an organization are not accepting any invitations for ride-alongs with immigration officials at this time. We will, however, continue to respond and report on what we see at those operations. Kyle.
You know, another thing that I heard today on Fox News was surprise that when the immigration agents got to some of these infamous apartments in Aurora, that they were largely empty. I mean, we've been talking about in the local media for months now that a lot of people have moved out of those problematic apartments. That's been going on for some time.
Yeah, they did this specifically because they wanted to make a show of it. Most of the immigration enforcement actions that you're seeing, all the way from the messaging surrounding it, constantly claiming that these are like really, really violent criminals and whatnot, is all done to basically beef up the Trump agenda and to justify increased enforcement. That's why they're lying and claiming that they're apprehending violent criminals when in fact they're not doing that. They're actually just going after whoever they can that they catch that is undocumented or sometimes literally documented, but are not a natural born U.S. citizen, like the DACA middle school teacher that was apprehended at a immigration court proceeding. Like that's a documented immigrant. That is not an undocumented migrant. That is a documented immigrant. That's crazy. They're also detaining people for speaking Spanish and not having paperwork on them. So even if you are a documented natural born American who happens to be speaking Spanish, you can still be detained. That should probably reveal to all of you what the actual intention is here. They're going after tribal members, Native Americans. Think about what that means, why that's happening. This badass lady is cursing ICE on Fox News. Oh yeah, when they did the Operation Ride Along, like the locals were shitting on ICE apparently too. Here, let's watch this.
ICE was met by activists who taunted them. Others who used megaphones to coach those living inside. DEA agents used flashbangs inside while serving a warrant. That led to a handful of arrests, but no TDA gang members. A stop at another apartment complex netted no arrests.
That first woman in the parking lot holding her coffee cup and cussing them out, they described her as an activist. I I don't know. Maybe she is. Looked to me like a super annoyed neighbor who was angry to see a bunch of ICE agents dressed up like the 82nd Airborne in her apartment building's parking lot. The day after that footage was released, Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, announced that these media ride-alongs might be coming to an end because of operational security.
Yeah. They thought they could get away with captive media. They thought they could get away with Fox News onboarding on these things to make them look cool and badass and just do propaganda. And then, obviously it shows the depravity, the moral depravity of the entire situation. So they might actually stop these highly televised, publicized media ride-alongs. It's truly insane what is going on right now. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I mentioned this when I was in Japan as well. A lot of people got mad at me when we were looking at the first ICE ride-alongs that Fox News did. If you recall, the question I had was, who are these people? And if they are truly violent criminals that went through the court system and were convicted of doing crimes, why were they walking free? I don't want violent rape, no matter what their background is, whether they are of Venezuelan origin or homegrown white rape, to walk freely on the streets after they have been charged and especially after they've been convicted. So what happened here? Because if the Republican administration's propaganda on this matter was correct, they would have a tremendous opportunity to propagandize by saying this guy is a convicted rapist and Joe Biden's activist courts and Joe Biden's activist judges allowed him to roam freely because he was undocumented. If that was the truth and not simply a lie that they present, then oh my God, that would be a fantastic opportunity. You can't even find one? You can't find one guy? That would be massive. So why is there no evidence to show that? Why is the only thing that we have to rely on Fox News onboarding and doing ride-alongs with ICE where they basically put the camera on someone and claim that they're a rapist? Why is there no paperwork that we can look at? That's why I think the ProPublica reporting on this is very important. They actually dove into the data and found that with the increased ICE immigrant raids, they've actually detained 8,200 people so far for deportation, and more than half of them had no criminal records whatsoever. That directly contradicts the argument that the Trump administration was making, that they're only going after violent criminals, except 4,000 plus were not criminals at all.
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
The Trump agenda is exactly the same as the first go-around. Declare a national emergency at the border, halt refugee admissions, end catch and release, make asylum seekers wait in Mexico for U.S. hearings, promote third country asylum agreements, DNA test some of the immigrants, expand who was targeted for deportation, focus Homeland Security investigations on immigration enforcement instead of, literally pull from other aspects of Homeland Security, like actual drug detentions, like units that are tasked with investigating drug-related drug trafficking are now tasked with doing dragnet operations on random immigrant neighborhoods. Think about that. Expansion of expedited removal, put pressure on recalcitrant countries to take back deportees, create an office to assist victims of crimes committed by immigrants, limit temporary protected status, increase scrutiny of work permits, target sanctuary jurisdiction, information sharing, denying public benefits to unauthorized immigrants, travel bans. Denaturalizing U.S. citizens is like the final stage of this. Actively trying to do that is going to be the last aspect of this. Expulsion based on public health concerns. A version of this already occurred with the CDC move. Donald Trump kept saying COVID is fake, it's not real, whatever. But it was simply used as a tool to deny immigrants access into the country. Title 42, if you recall, was the only COVID prevention measure that the administration actually utilized. Deploy military troops to the border, build border barriers, land acquisition for border barriers, ramping up criminal prosecutions of people crossing the border illegally, expanding detention, local cooperation for immigration enforcement, increase immigration agent hiring, and enhance vetting. Policies he hasn't tried before that he wants to are ending birthright citizenship, making the border a military priority, seeking to end birthright citizenship and Biden-era humanitarian programs at the border. Immigrant registration invokes a law requires all non-citizens to register and present their fingerprints to the U.S. government or be subject to criminal penalties. Ending and clawing back funding from organizations that support migrants. Designating international drug cartels and gangs as terrorists so they can further deny habeas corpus, deny due process to the people that are being prosecuted for criminal activity. And, then you can torture them and stuff too. The problem here always, as is the case with all matter of criminal enforcement, is that once you take away those constitutional rights, you are going to apprehend people that you claim are gang members, and now you're treating them like terrorists. Terrorism already is a vague designation created specifically to deny people their human rights anyway.